Hi everybody, I'm Simon Taylor, CEO, founder of HYCU. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. HYCU stands for Hybrid Cloud Uptime. We do pronounce it like the haiku poem. We are the world's fastest growing data protection as a service company. We do three things: automated backup and recovery, data migration, and disaster recovery as a service. Our claim to fame is the ability to provide true equivalency in your backup and recovery experience across on-prem, public cloud, and SaaS. Everything that we do, everything that you will see here today is true SaaS. I don't mean that we have a SaaS business model. I mean that we have constructed from the ground up the world's first truly SaaSified data protection platform with individual data protection across every element of your data estate.
Okay, how do you handle disaster recovery?
Yeah.
Because that's not just a data thing.
That's right.
It's about getting the right people at the right place. It's about getting the, culture right. It's about getting, understanding what needs to be brought up first, what the priorities are.
It's about the journaling. It's about working with and understanding the entire data estate.
Yeah.
One of the things we do is we partner with Terraform. We make sure that we have true journaling, and we natively integrate with the different hyperscalers to provide disaster recovery readiness on demand.
Okay.
We'll get into that in just a moment.
Yeah, because I worked for a bank once which managed to do disaster recovery to a data center that didn't have enough telephone lines.
And this is actually, you bring up a really good point. While we're talking about HYCU today, what I'm really here to talk about, and what Subbiah is really here to talk about, is the scourge of ransomware. Everything that HYCU is about, our mission, in fact, is to keep the world safe from ransomware. And I think one of the things that you'll see today is that HYCU is taking a very moral stance in our fight against the scourge. A couple of weeks ago, I had the honor of meeting with and presenting with the director of the FBI in the US, Christopher Wray, and we had a long sort of presentation from him about a ransomware attack on the Boston Children's Hospital. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was absolutely sickened to hear about this. They actually unclassified the information an hour before the presentation, 1 hour before the presentation. And what Director Wray said was that the Iranian government had intentionally targeted children heading into the operating room. Children heading into the operating room with the intention that they would lock out their data so those children could not get the surgeries that they needed and would therefore die. So when we talk about backup and recovery, when I started this business 4 years ago, the conversation was very much that of an infrastructure second-class citizen. It was, we're in the pipes, we're the plumbing, you need your backup, here we go. Today it's a matter of life and death. And so because of that, we have an entirely different approach to data protection that we're going to kind of walk through today. Now our story, I want to tell you a little bit about who HYCU is. I said that we're the world's fastest growing backup as a service company. That's entirely true. We grew 450% in 2020, 150% last year. We've got over 3,100 customers in 78 countries. Our business began in April of 2018 when we set out to SaaSify data protection. And the two questions we sought to solve, the first was, how do you build true equivalency into a platform? Many of you know and have reported on over the years all of the other data protection vendors in our industry. And I won't name names, but let's just go through the history a little bit. We think about Unix. Was there a vendor that was good at backing up Unix? Yes. When we think about Windows servers, was there another vendor that was great at backing up Windows servers? VMware. Can anyone think of a backup company that was great at backing up VMware? But what happened when that same company tried to back up physical machines? What happened when they tried to back up Hyper-V, right? The problem in our industry has historically been that as organizations, we are incredibly siloed. We as data protection vendors have always viewed the world through the lens of, this is the kind of technology platform I'm going to back up. I'm going to learn how to do that. Everything else will be secondary.
And also, most of them focused on the backup and not the restore.
Not the restore. Well said. Thank you very much. That is absolutely true. In fact, I read something this morning about World Backup Day, and somebody else said, it was not me, I can't take credit for it. It should be World Restore Day or World Recovery Day. And I have to say, that's a very, very true sentiment. Very, very true.
I tried to get Symantec to call it Restore Exec.
Well, well, I'll tell you, Enrique Salem is the chairman of our board, so I'm not going to talk about Symantec at all. But I will say this. I will say that when we sought to build equivalency into our platform, we took an entirely different approach. We didn't start out by saying, what's the hottest, coolest, biggest trend in technology to back up and restore? We said first and foremost, customers are going to have their data in different silos. Oh my gosh, how prescient that was. You know, if we looked 5 years ago, customers had their data in 10, 20 silos. The average mid-market vendor today has their data in 150 different data sources. The SaaSification and fragmentation of data has never been greater. And it puts our entire world at risk. It puts our entire world at risk. You probably hear my competitors talk a lot about data, right? As the new oil, the new gold, the new sexy thing that's going to make us all sorts of money. I look at it as ammunition, pure and simple. Ammunition, it's a weapon that is being positioned against us. If we do not learn to protect our data, no matter where it resides, and eliminate data silos, we are going to have problems. Now, as a company, we've been really fortunate. Throughout the horrors of COVID, as customers were flying to the cloud, they were looking for a simple way to work from home and migrate data and manage the entire cloud journey. Because we did that so well, and we could do it across clouds and from on-prem to public cloud with such great ease, in fact, in 4 clicks, we can actually migrate an entire workload such as SAP HANA. Because of that, we grew very, very fast, and we started to become approached by a lot of different venture capital firms. We were a business that waited to take venture money. We had over 1,000 customers before we took a dime. And so when we did take money, it was from Bain Capital Ventures and A-Crew, and we did an $87.5 million A round in April of 2021, the largest A round in Bain Capital Ventures history. About 3 weeks ago, we did our B round at $53 million. During that B round, we added 2 incredibly important strategic investors. The first is a little company called Cisco. And Cisco reached out to us because they have been working very hard on their SaaS Intersight platform. Are you guys familiar with Intersight? Yep. You know, and so what they did is they called us and they said, look, we've looked at all the backup vendors. We've looked at all the data protection vendors out there today. It looks like you guys are true SaaS. You're not just talking about SaaS. We said, yeah. Gave them a demo, showed them the product. And they said, this is almost like Intersight for backup. You know, is this API driven? We said, of course it's API driven. We built this 4 years ago, right? And you know, away we went, and we were able to bring on Cisco as a strategic partner. I can promise you guys this, over the course of the next year, you'll be hearing a lot about the HYCU and Cisco relationship. The second strategic investor that we brought on was Atlassian. You know, Atlassian are the pioneers of product-led growth. Jira, Confluence, there's no DevOps, there's no developer in the world that doesn't love the technology or at least need the technology that Atlassian provides. For us to become a strategic partner and to take them on as a strategic investor was a great day for HYCU because it meant a couple of things. One, we now have their ongoing support as we launch new products in the market. And 2, it allows us to open up relationships with Atlassian's product teams so that we can begin to work with them in a very strategic manner. Again, much more to come on Cisco and Atlassian, but the key thing to note is that we've raised $140 million in less than 12 months. And we've done it with some of the top investors in the world and 2 of the best strategic technology companies in the business. Any questions on that? How are we doing so far? I know we're the second guys. It's terrible to be second, you know. Please.
Do you have a plan also to, because all the architecture are changing to new things around Kubernetes and containers, in fact with Atlassian also to become a programmable solution directly on the DevOps pipeline,
yes.
CI/CD, and to offer this backup that they could just call from a service in their development.
You know, but I'll say this for right now, and then we'll come back to you in 2 months. Oh. We are about to launch what I believe will change the world in terms of data protection and data management. A new kind of SaaS data protection platform that will be truly the most extensible platform in the world. with oversight and support from Atlassian and their teams, we're going to launch this platform. It will be a HYCU platform, but we will certainly learn from and engage with Atlassian in a very deep way to make sure that it is as impactful as possible for DevOps teams around the world. I'm going to leave it there. I know that's a big tease, but obviously we want to make sure that we have more of these and we can come back when we actually launch it. Nothing worse than when the CEO gets up and gives the game away while the product guy has to go out and build the thing. But it's going to be terrific. It's very, very exciting, and it builds entirely on the HYCU platform. So the next SaaS platform that we launch is not going to be a revolution. It's a true evolution of everything that we've built so far. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what it is that we've actually built.
Just one little question.
Please.
What about recovering digital twins, which could be just the same sort of thing writ larger, but a digital twin is a more important thing to back up and recover. Because if you corrupt the digital twin, you corrupt the production system.
Yes, yes. You know, I think there's been a lot of discussion recently about how you deal with that, and how you deal with kind of the underlying challenge in, not only from a backup perspective, but also a replication perspective. And when you move the data.
Well, it's proper version control, version management, isn't it?
It is. And I think it gets further complicated by issues like data sovereignty. Because then you say, well, not only how are we versioning it and how are we protecting it, but where are we protecting it? And so it becomes increasingly complex as you sort of follow that rope all the way down.
And you have a time series, of course, because you've got the system as it is now, the system as it will be next month, both coexisting.
Exactly right, exactly right. Subbiah, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you hit one of the very complicated subjects about how do you manage digital twins, right?
Yes.
There are multiple points. Logically, I think the way we believe is that you got to actually be able to protect the data. It doesn't matter how many copies the customer actually has. Yeah. The question is, operationally, how do you simplify it for them, as well as storage-wise, how do you keep it efficient for them, right? So it's give them the flexibility at the operational level to manage it. At the end of the day, still make it simple in the back end and keep it cost efficient. Yeah. So that's the way we have actually at least planned for it.
Yes. Great question.
Sorry.
Please.
Do you have any plan to add a backup as a service solution in the end? I mean, many of your competitors are building a fully, managed subscription-based solution.
That's exactly what we sell.
Absolutely.
Yes. So certainly, like, this is true backup as a service. This is a true subscription-based service that you turn on. You don't download it. It is true SaaS.
Okay, so I missed something somewhere.
Yes.
So one of the things I can actually probably talk you through, but particular one, as Simon will talk about in our platform, every one of the public cloud services is truly a fully managed subscription service. You just turn it on, use it as much as you want, turn it off when you want. I'll even do a quick demo of the solution today. That's something there. With the on-prem version, we actually obviously have a management plane in the cloud. But as you know, anytime, because it's behind the firewall, the customer has to deploy a piece of software. Not just with us, pretty much in any vendor, if you think about, even if it's a SaaS, you still have to deploy a small piece. That's the only thing which is running in the on-prem, but everything else the customer can manage it centrally from a cloud console. Absolutely.
Actually, back to the previous remark, we need restore as a service, not backup as a service. I use a backup as a service thing. Restore does work, but the restore is a lot more clumsy and less comfortable than the backup, which is very automatic.
Well, the backup's very easy, right? And it really is. It's an interesting thing, actually. We've been discussing this a lot. I refer to it oftentimes with journalists and with analysts as resiliency as a service, because I think the idea of just backup as a service is very antiquated. It's meant different things over time. But I think what we're seeing now, and unfortunately it's stuck, isn't it? Gartner calls it backup as a service, the analysts call it backup as a service, and so the industry calls it backup as a service. But in reality, it's about resiliency. It's about how do you stay up and running and how do you get back online as quickly as possible when data's down, when it's been deleted, or when you've been hacked. And so I think really this is a resiliency as a service play that does three things: automated data migration, disaster recovery, and the backup and restore.
There also a lot of waste associated in doing backup and restore, in that if you analyze what you need to do for disaster recovery, that's a good check, double check on the operation of the system. if you discover stuff that you won't bother to restore in the first 6 months, it's not that urgent, you question why you're running it in the first place.
Yes.
There's a lot of information and double checking of the integrity of your system that you get from the disaster recovery analysis.
But not only that, there's the process of actually restarting,
Yes.
That's right.
which BA went through a
Yeah.
few years ago, you remember?
Yes.
It's a real challenge. And the other thing that people often don't talk about, and we're going really down to the weeds now, but VM stun, for example, very simple things. One of the things that we've noticed is that when other vendors have tried to build different source data protection, they don't natively integrate it. They're deploying agents. Everything that we do is truly agentless. So we go into the storage snapshot level, we'll go through the VADP API in the case of VMware, and this prevents this whole VM stun issue. You don't have to shut down production to do it. You just go simultaneously.
You do need to validate, though. I mean, my thing was that an untested disaster recovery system
Yes.
is no disaster recovery
That's right.
system. It must be tested, but the test can do as much damage as the disaster. And the other thing is that you don't want to recover against just disasters, because if everything is running close to its
Near real-time.
permitted levels,
Yeah.
the performance will be so atrocious you'll get no work done.
That's it.
So everything running suboptimally can be as much of a disaster as something actually dying completely.
Subbiah, let's give a quick answer to this, and then let's jump on.
Sure.
So I want to make sure we have time for the announcement as well. But no, these are such excellent points. We need to grab a glass of wine after this, I think, and have a conversation about it. Subbiah, go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, one of the constant things we tell people is that it is just not about the backup. One is how do you make it impact-free? The second is that how do you actually make it constantly validated, right? This is where our true multi-cloud solution, being able to not just locally, being able to offload your validation to some other place, keep it boxed, validated, not just saying is a machine up. It's a question of is your application up? Is your application able to respond in case of a disaster? That is something which we have completely automated, so we can actually talk more about it. So, please.
Thank you very much. All right. So HYCU's resiliency as a service platform, we just talked about this. It's actually very timely. You asked, is it backup as a service? Is it restore as a service? It's resiliency as a service. Cloud backups for on-prem, diverse platform support, agentless, migration, DR. Easy lift and shift to public cloud, ease of workload mobility between on-prem and public cloud. Now, I just want to talk about this for a moment. We have patented something called application awareness. We call it Rapid Application Discovery and Recovery Radar. Rapid Application Discovery and Recovery has a unique process for very quickly looking inside virtual machines, identifying which bits and bytes make up which workloads, and then allowing us to automatically migrate entire workloads together. The data integrity is 98%. It's incredible. It's some of the highest in the industry. But beyond that, you can very quickly lift and shift everything when it comes to an entire workload. So let's take SAP HANA. We've seen customers go out there and use Velastrada to move SAP HANA instances from on-prem to public cloud. They end up hiring Deloitte to come in and do a 3 to 6 month project to do that implementation. 4 clicks. You select the virtual machine, you tell it which workload, it selects the virtual machines, and it moves them automatically into the cloud. 4 clicks, back again.
And then you have to check it's still working, because however much faith you have in this, if it's any sort of a legally made, certified system, there's always a possibility it doesn't work exactly the same way after you've restored it. So you do have to do some validation.
There's a whole series of validation checks and monitoring that's actually built in, machine learning driven, so it learns from you as you're doing it. I will tell you that every department in the United States military uses HYCU for this. Every department. A number of 3-letter agencies. GCHQ. I mean, you name it, we're migrating their workloads, with this solution. And so I think when we think about it, this is not a new solution. This is not an untested solution. It's being used by 3,100 organizations around the world. But you're absolutely right. One of the big things that we had to build into the system were these checks and balances to make sure that we're not only identifying the virtual machines, but we're able to then naturally move them over. I think what happens when you do this organically without HYCU is you end up trying to figure out where the different areas of data are. And that becomes a chess game. It becomes a choose your own adventure, if you would. And I think that's where a lot of that data loss occurs. By automating that process, tagging it in the very unique way that we've done and patented, we're actually able to avoid that problem.
Does the same thing apply to containers as virtual machines?
It does. It does, and that's a great question. So we actually offer one of the world's only natively integrated Kubernetes support processes for data protection. So what we've actually done, we realized something, which is if you look at the rest of our industry, what do they do with containers? Do they build it or do they buy it? They buy it, right? Look at Pure, let's look at Veeam, let's look at our competition. They're buying third-party vendors and bolting them on. And we said, but that's a problem, because if you look at the makeup of a modern application, is it just a container? Probably not. It's probably a container inside a virtual machine sitting on a physical server, right? And so if you've got a disconnected set of tools to manage and back up and protect containers here, and you've got a natively integrated containerized workload, you're not going to be able to back it up. You'll need 3 screens in 6 hours. So we said, what if we do it differently? What if we take into account the fact that modern applications will look like that stack? And we built native integrations into things like GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine, so that we're actually leveraging that platform. We're doing the same thing on Azure and on AWS to be able to go into these apps and actually protect the application, the workload itself, no matter where it sits. Somebody, do you want to add anything?
Absolutely. So it's done, as you well know, it's even in the container world, all the customer cares about is the application, not necessarily the containers itself, right? So one of the things is we auto-discover the applications running inside the container. We auto-discover the data, which physical volumes, PVs, its data is on, so on. We back up the configuration, the HCs, all that stuff is automatically done for the customer from the application context, not necessarily the container context. So.
All right, and last piece here, ransomware-proof backups. So again, immutable storage, worm, all of these things have become really table stakes to some degree. But the way that we do virtual air gapping, the way that we natively integrate with the targets and the sources is really unlike anything else. And I want to explain what I mean by that. I said before that when we started out, we looked at the world of data protection and said, this model for single source backup and recovery is broken because there are so many data silos, so many sources. Platforms today need to be truly extensible. And I remember we were sitting in a room and we're having a conversation about this, and after about an hour and a half, we kind of shook our heads and said, whatever box we build, it's going to be built for one thing and substandard for everything else. And we said, well, what if we didn't build a box? What if we started with purpose-built backup and recovery services that were natively integrated at the source? So we did. We built one for Nutanix and one for VMware and one for physical and GCP and Azure and Google and Kubernetes, right? And Office 365. We built all these separate services. And then we up-leveled all the data under a single pane of glass, added automated data migration and disaster recovery functionality, like a manager of managers. So the abstraction layer was actually quite thin. We didn't have this giant box, lots of agents to worry about. We had these purpose-built services. I call it the inverted platform, because in fact the intelligence, the muscle memory of our services is at the native integration level. It's not at the box level. In fact, there is no box. It's a simple presentation layer that's marrying together the data from all of those different sources into a truly extensible platform that we call HYCU Protege. Let me pause there. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Great. And this is what we built, and this is what we support. Again, when we started this out a couple of years ago, I was speaking with some analysts, I won't say who, and they said, but this is crazy. Nobody does it this way. Rubrik and Cohesity build a box. Where's your box? Where's your metal? And we said, we don't want any metal. They said, why? And I said, if you look at the history of data protection, again, it was getting simpler. Veritas, Commvault, Veeam, they were starting to get it right. They were starting to make it easier, simpler. They were moving away from storage. They were moving away from hardware. And then suddenly it all changed. And we said, in a multi-cloud world, you cannot have 30 different applications, 30 different backup vendors to support all your different data sources. But you need equivalency. You must have that same level of integration no matter where your data sits. And this inverted platform, this methodology, gives you that without agents and with the simplest deployment model in the industry.
Shouldn't OpenStack and Red Hat be on there somewhere? Well,
Sorry.
it's wrong.
I'm a little deaf, I'm sorry.
OpenStack and Red Hat. Shouldn't
Yes,
they be on there somewhere?
it's a great question. It's a great question. The great thing about this model is that it is truly extensible. We added Isilon to this recently. You know, we're in conversations with Red Hat. You can literally add anything in just a few months, and it will extend the platform organically without interfering with the way this platform works. And I think that we call it the hook system. We're able to automatically hook in through our APIs to any additional integration. So I think you'll see a lot more in the way of these support systems, and I also think you'll see a lot more SaaS. Again, data fragmentation is a real issue. Eliminating data silos is the vision of HYCU. That is what we aim to do. And the way we're going to do it is by hooking these things together and creating that same ease of use, that same simplicity in that experience.
So how about also services like Adobe for
Yes.
people doing a lot of content? And other
Absolutely.
things?
It goes back to what Simon was saying around, when you think in terms of data, he talks about 150 data silos, which is a lot of people have data in Adobe. For them, that's the mission critical data for them. So absolutely, you'll see more
Yes.
information.
You'll see a lot more in the next couple of months.
That's your answer to everything, though.
We'll talk more about it. It's like,
Again, application consistent. If you remember anything about this presentation, backup migration in DR, consolidated data management, but that purpose-built backup as a service. It's not just backup as a service, it's purpose-built for each individual source. That is HYCU's claim to fame. That's how we were able to add 3,100 customers in such a short period of time.
I like resiliency as well because you're not actually trying to recover your data, you're trying to recover your business service.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Customer happiness is what you're really trying to
It's customer delight. And I'm so glad you bring that up because customer delight is our 91 NPS score. Great timing, thank you. You know, our customers.
$100 later.
A3 will take care of that. You know, when we think about the simplicity, the purpose-built, enterprise-ready, it's the elasticity, though, isn't it? If you're putting data into a public cloud, into a hyperscaler, you expect to be able to scale up and down. If your backup cannot scale with you, and you're paying all the time as though it was at maximum capacity, why have a public cloud at all? So by building that true elasticity into HYCU, and into the way HYCU works with the hyperscalers, we actually mirror and create that truly frictionless experience that reduces the overall TCO and creates a better ownership process for the customer. And that's why we have a 91 NPS score. I will also say, you know, we take the NPS at HYCU incredibly seriously. You know, our three core values, and you know, our product folks hate when I talk about this, but authenticity, grit, empathy. We love to put ourselves in our customers' shoes. We invest an inordinate amount, a much greater percentage of funds into customer success and the customer success team to make sure that NPS is not just a number on a piece of paper. It's actually integrated commands in our roadmap. It's how we think about building product and services. It's how we grow and evolve as a company.
So if I went along to your developer team, I would see happy, fulfilled developers because you can't fake ethics. If you're going to be an ethical company, you have to be ethical in the way you run internally as well.
I call it the engineering power structure at HYCU. It's not just happiness. There's a lot of empowerment that goes on with our engineering team. You know, they are the backbone, the DNA of the company, and they know it and they feel it every day. If you go and you read about, it's not just the engineers, by the way, it's also our support team. If you go and read customer reviews of HYCU, support gets mentioned so often. And what they say is, it's just so quick and so painless, I could just have that conversation anytime. I think customer delight has to be in every area of the business. It doesn't just stop with customer success, it needs to permeate through the rest. But certainly we're not a company that started with a PowerPoint and a sales team. We started by investing in technology and engineering, and that is the backbone of the business.
Who are you taking on any of your users as part of your engineering team or support team?
Oh, I love that question. So you know what we did do is we built a customer advisory board that we take very seriously, a partner advisory board. We run a HYCU customer engage event quarterly. And what we do through those is we make sure we bring them into the process. But I actually love the idea of bringing on some of our customers. We should do that.
Do you have a community out there on sort of open source style where you've got customers who are actually swapping ideas for how you can use HYCU and stuff like that?
Yes. In fact, we have a HYCU certification program that sort of validates folks into our community and then allows them opportunities to kind of share ideas. One of the things that I want to mention, she's been very quiet here today, and she's not usually, but Kelly Hopping, our CMO, former CMO at Gartner Digital, Rackspace. Kelly's done and seen it all. And one of the major things that Kelly has brought to the business is this idea that community needs to be at the core of everything that we do. And I think what you're going to see out of HYCU in the next sort of year and a half, especially with this latest fundraising round, is a continued investment in our community and making sure that we not only support the community, but provide additional avenues for them to interact and communicate on an ongoing basis.
A marketplace is quite nice because if they have good ideas, they can extend what you can do as a marketing team.
Don, we need him in the room in 2 months when we come back.
I mean, that's definitely the intent of the community, is to create not only your kind of tools and API marketplace, but also that discussion marketplace, that sharing of best practices, that place to go for questions. And that's the idea of bringing all this
That
together.
makes you much less risk because you're no longer buying into one company.
Yeah.
Whoever good might get taken over by Oracle or something, but you're buying into a community of other people
Yes.
that can disagree with if your marketing goes off the lines, the community can still be.
Keep you honest. They keep us honest, right?
Yes.
They keep us honest and ethical, and I think that's the point. I fully agree. I also think if you look at any ubiquitous platform, right, they have two things in common. One is they have an economy around them, right? They've got a partnership system that creates true economic scale, and the second is community, and those are equal. All right, so very quickly, 75 plus countries, 350 partners, 3,100 customers, 91 NPS score. Our customers are all over the world. As I mentioned, our Fed and SLED businesses are terrific. I can't name which one, but I will tell you this. One of my favorite customer stories, there is a very large Navy, it's not the US Navy, that was trying to decide which data protection vendor to go with. And they set a very simple test. They said, we're going to take 3 vendors, and they took 3 vendors, and I won't name the other 2, but you know them very well, and they put them on a ship. And they said to the ship captain, we're not sending any IT. You're out on this battleship, you're out there for 6 weeks. When you come back, tell us which one worked. When the ship captain came back 6 weeks later, HYCU was the only one he could even nearly install. And they've now deployed HYCU across the entire naval fleet. So again, it's very hard to define simplicity, isn't it? It's very hard to prove simplicity. But an example like that, where you take a non-certified, non-engineer in a battle situation, and you say, or a stress-filled situation, and you say, which one works and which one makes sense, which one can you operate? It was HYCU. True simplicity. I'm going to skip this. Some great comments. Our very own Giga Thank you very much, Giga. All right. And highlight of recent events. So for this one, I want to, I do want to put an embargo on this. Is that what we call it, Don? All right. So short term, 1 week. This is a big announcement, and it's something that we're very excited about. So till next Tuesday.
Can you remind, if you're going to put embargoes on things, can you remind us when it comes off? Because it's quite easy, I find it very easy to forget by next Tuesday.
Yes, we'll take care of that for sure. The first thing is HYCU Protege for AWS Marketplace Solution. This is part 1 of the announcement. It's not the most exciting part. You know, I told you guys that we had built out AWS. I think we launched it last October. We are now announcing that HYCU Protege for AWS is now in the AWS Marketplace. I think that's a very exciting thing. We're all looking forward to making it easier and more frictionless for our customer base to be able to turn on HYCU in the AWS Marketplace. But what I'm really excited about is what we're going to do to take on ransomware. You know, I told you guys before that we take this very, very seriously at HYCU. We see it as no less than a moral imperative to help our customers and really help any organization worldwide to fight the scourge of ransomware. I'm absolutely sickened on a daily basis by what I'm seeing, from the ransomware community. The ease, the fact that with $100, $200, you can now order white glove service that's going to actually help you to deploy a ransomware attack, a $200 terrorist attack. It's become so easy and so simple to do that. I'm going to give you guys just a few stats. 82.6% of U.S. organizations have been victims of one or more successful cyber attacks, one every 11 seconds. Every 11 seconds, another organization is being taken down and taken offline. The average organization is taken offline for 16 days. Can you imagine as an organization not being able to access your data for 16 days? How many companies have gone out of business because of this? How many people have not been able to get the surgeries they need, have lost their financial records, have lost time, money, and their own safety?
One thing is you may not go out of business immediately. If trust evaporates in you, you may go out of business 2 years down the line.
Absolutely.
As a result of that ransomware attack and your inability to actually rebuild trust after it happened. And that can be insidious because you forget to associate it with the ransomware event.
Exactly. No, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. And I think it's even beyond that. I think, it's almost like the mental health crisis. I was talking to Kelly about this recently. In the old days, people didn't used to talk about mental health, did they? It was an embarrassment. It was something you kind of hid, right? Ransomware attacks are like that. I was at a dinner party the other night, and a guy said, "Oh, is your business in trouble?" I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, it looks like ransomware attacks have stopped." I said, "What?" This is a smart person. This is a person with a very high-end job. And I said, "What would make you think that?" He said, "Well, it was in the news a lot, and now it's sort of fizzled. It feels like it's sort of a problem somewhere else. It's not happening here." I said, "It's happening every 11 seconds, man. I mean, this is one of the true scourges of our lives today." And so I got back to work. We started talking to Subbiah about it. And I made this comment. I said, "It's not a question of if, but when." And he said, "Absolutely. It's going to happen to everybody." And the problem is, if we think about PDR, prevention, detection, recovery, where does all the money go? Prevention, detection. Everybody wants CrowdStrike. Everyone is worried and thinking constantly about how do we prevent the bad actors from getting into the castle.
But you need to share information about ransomware attacks and what you did about them. And you need to have insurance companies that don't invalidate your policy if you talk about your ransomware attack.
Exactly.
And you need governments that will
I think he's seen the presentation.
insure you against.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, somebody's making a lot of money out of ransomware.
That's right.
You've really got to
You've got to fight back.
Take them down as well.
You do, which is why, and thank you for your intros are amazing. We launched something called RScore, getarscore.org. I did it with Kevin Mandian, Subbiah, Carasoft, Rackspace? SADA. We've got a whole community of vendors. We got together and we said, we need to provide a true public service that's absolutely free, does not gate any content, doesn't even know who you are. A simple credit score-like assessment of your ability to recover from a ransomware attack. We broke down the test into 5 distinct categories, everything from the backup process, the backup infrastructure, security and networking, your resource store process, your disaster recovery process. You go online to getarscore.org, you answer simple questions, and at the end, it gives you a customized assessment, not only telling you where you're having problems, but how you can fix them. We launched that in July of 2021. 45,000 people have taken the test. 45,000 people. That's how afraid people are of ransomware.
Other people are doing things like this as well, aren't they?
And they're charging for them. This is absolutely free.
Okay, yeah.
We don't gate the content. And again, it's a true public service. So this time, and here's my next announcement.
Can we get back on the first announcement? Because we've been discussing a lot of things.
Yes.
We've digged a lot of rabbit holes. And
Yes.
I've lost the track of what's going on.
Yes. So simply put, the first piece is that we have now added AWS Marketplace integration for HYCU.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And the second piece is that we started to think about the fact that out of all of the companies that have been surveyed, 90% said that they were able to protect themselves from a ransomware attack.
Okay.
But when the same companies were asked, do you know how to recover your data if you're attacked? Only 14% said yes. Let that sink in for a second. 90% of companies have told their boards, we're ready. Bad guys are never going to get in. But if they do get in, only 14% of them actually know how to recover their data. And that's why HYCU is thrilled to offer.
So can I just ask a quick question about that survey?
Yes.
Who are you asking? Because I reckon if you ask the CISO, or ask the CIO, or ask the FD, you'd have very different answers from all these people. So who's giving that information?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
So yes, if you ask that question, how prepared are you for ransomware, you'd get a different answer from a CISO, from a CIO, from an FD, from a CEO. You'd get very different answers. Who's giving that information?
It depends. So a number of folks have taken the test, and what we're finding is that the CISOs tend to be the folks who are taking it. You know, the big challenge for us, though, is, and again, we do not gate any of this content, right? So we very intentionally do not want to gate it because we didn't want the test to become another point of vulnerability for the companies taking it. So we don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. But what I will tell you is that the folks who then have gone to the HYCU website afterwards and called us, it's typically security folks. It's also insurance companies who have said, can we bake the R-score process into what we're doing? All right?
That might be a bit of a...
Yes. No, it's key. It's key. And so then we thought about this and we said, okay, so we launched AWS in the marketplace and that's great. And we started to talk to customers and run surveys and look at what customers were actually doing with their data protection. And we learned something. We learned that while 95% of customers say that they're in the public cloud, only about 56% believe that they need to back up the public cloud. And when we talk about the shared responsibility model, we said to a lot of our customers, but surely you know that the public cloud cannot recover your data. And they said, well, yeah, but what's going to happen to Amazon? And you say, well, 80% of data loss is coming from human error. From human error.
Future terms and conditions validate.
That's
and
right.
They clearly point out that they don't look after you.
That's
They
right.
don't put you.
And so our big announcement today, for the folks at Guillaume, I want you to remember this. HYCU is announcing the world's first backup as a public service. We're going to provide 1 free terabyte of backup, no strings attached, buy nothing else, keep it forever. Because what we've realized is there is 1 terabyte of core data that is almost sort of, think of it like the classified information in any company. Every mid-market company has that. In some cases, it's source code. In some cases, it's financial modeling. But when we actually reached out to mid-market customers and said, well, just tell us, if you might not believe that you need to back up your data, fine. But tell us how much of that data you could not live without. And typically, there's 1 terabyte of data that is so important that it would shut down the business for a very, very long period of time.
Small photographer. I back up 4 terabytes of data.
That's right. That's right. But this is how scary it is. You know, that all of these coming, you back it up. You back it up. There are so many customers out there who are saying, or so many companies who say, I'm not even going to consider backing up the public cloud.
Sure, how well accepted.
Yes.
Sorry, when you say it's on AWS, does it mean that AWS as the target, or is it for workloads which already, or data which
These are for workloads residing on AWS, and then you can choose your target. Yes. So this is true source integration offered through the marketplace. You don't download anything. This is true SaaS. Remember your first question, is this as a service? Of course it is. You go to the AWS marketplace, you turn it on, you set your configuration, and you get your free terabyte with no strings attached.
Problem though, because I've worked on designing backup services, and once people decide to only back up the important stuff, they make mistakes, and you find that stuff that wasn't important last month
Yes.
becomes important and isn't being backed up.
Yes.
Because that decision is never revisited.
So
I think back up everything
Is the
has to
message.
be the safest way.
You know, we thought a lot about that too. And you know, there were folks in the organization who said, well, we should just tell them they have to back up everything. I said, you know, that's great, but there are hundreds of thousands, literally, of organizations that are unprotected right now.
Well,
And
and
so-
anyway, if you have more than 1 terabyte, you can just pay.
You can just pay for it. Yeah. So this to me
This
is,
a drive-by kind of.
yes, this is our way of sort of giving back and saying, ransomware is so bad, let us show you how seriously we're taking this. At least back up 1 terabyte of your data for free and protect yourself, you know. And then of course, we would love to encourage them to back up the rest, but we want to remove all friction.
How long does it take to restore 1 terabyte? Because my cloud backup is great for restoring single files. It's absolutely hopeless of storing 4 terabytes.
Well, and that, again, that's why this is enterprise-grade data protection. We're the company that backs up Broadcom. We're the company that backs up some of the largest organizations in the world. And so we've figured out how to do granular recovery at scale. We've figured out how to work with file systems. We've figured out how to manage complex applications and databases and make sure that the recovery process is fast, efficient, and simple. Because again, we never want professional services required to use HYCU.
Okay, if I was a state criminal and I wanted to damage an American company, I wouldn't put in ransomware that fired off this week or this month. I'd put in ransomware that started encrypting stuff without telling anybody for a couple of years. And when I was fairly certain that
I know where you're
backups
going.
had also been
Yep.
corrupted, then I'd switch to ransomware on. It would be no fun for the average ransomware cowboy,
Yep.
but it might be very effective for a bad state.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of companies out there, I think, right now that will tell you that you need the same level of complexity and monitoring on the backups as you do in production. You know, our view is that you do need monitoring. You do need to know when there is a massive anomaly, and we built that anomaly detection into the system, but it shouldn't be something that you turn on. You know, from our perspective, that is table stakes. You know, from our perspective, you need to natively have that monitoring tool built into what you do, and it literally needs to be a core part of your functionality.
You should be able to notice ransomware activity going on, though.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You need to get alerts.
See a step change
You
in
need
something
but you need
that
active
starts
alerting,
encrypting
which is what we
data.
do. So what we do is we provide active alerting if there's an anomaly, and that we detect in the system.
Absolutely. So we do provide anomaly detection. The other thing which we have actually found kind of a little silly for some time is that people do all the protection, but they forget to actually lock down the backup sources, right? Backup targets. Guys, you got to lock it down. Sounds simple, but people make a mistake. So those are things to...
If I want to steal data, I'll steal the backups.
Absolutely.
On
So
the other hand, if the backups are encrypted, somebody loses the backup encryption key, and then you've lost your backups.
absolutely, to your point, one of the things which we have actually found out is that ransomware is getting smarter. They first go and delete the backups before coming and attacking the production. That is something we have found. So that's one of the reasons we have actually built in, as Simon said, we have made it a default. It's not one of those things customers have to configure or things like that. So we notify the customer. One of our core things we believe is that we do 24/7 monitoring, not just of the backup service, also of the backup infrastructure the customer is running. So there are times, I'll tell you, we proactively send an email to the customer saying, hey, here's a trouble ticket, you need to go change your networking. They say, what do you mean? I didn't create a ticket. No, we created the ticket for you because we figured out that your networking is not right because there is a problem here, can you do that? So that's something we do want to make sure it's a service function we do.
Yeah. So again, in summation, I know we covered a lot here today. I hope you got a very clear understanding of HYCU and what we do. I'm going to pass it to Subbiah in a moment to actually give you a demo so you can see the product in action. But the two major announcements: one, AWS in the marketplace; two, the world's first backup as a public service. Free data protection for Amazon. Any questions? Good? My friend over here. All right, great. With that, Subbiah, pass it over to you.
Thank you, Simon. So one of the things you said, you wanted to go double-click on the first announcement. I will absolutely do that in the follow-on slides. So the first thing is that I'm going to talk a little more about specifically what did we offer for AWS. We announced it earlier. We actually have it in the marketplace. Let's talk about it. What's the broader problem? As Simon said, a significant number of customers on AWS think you don't need to protect the data. As all of you know, it doesn't matter where your data is, you got to back it up. It is best practices for a variety of reasons. At the end of the day, we are still human, we make mistakes. And there are bad actors all the time. So the way we look at people, typically they end up doing one of three things there. Either people use when we observe a lot of customers migrating from on-prem to the public cloud, they say, oh, on-prem I have a backup, why don't I use the same thing on the public cloud? They try, and at some point say, oh, I need to change. Because I'll tell you, there are so many customers when they come back, they say, oh, I tried that product I had on-prem on the public cloud, it was such a pain, I want to switch. And when they look at our solution, it's simple. So that's the first one. The second part is that people use some native solutions or scripts. That works for a short while. You guys know the problem with long-term scripting. And the third party, there are some SaaS solutions out there in the market. The challenge is that a big thing in customers and what we believe in the public cloud is that data sovereignty is such a critical thing, and data ownership. Who owns the data, right? A big thing we fundamentally believe, as Simon must have mentioned earlier, is that we believe the customer should own the data, the vendor should never own the data. Sounds like a simple thing, but it's a fundamental principle. The main reason we believe is that when you go to the public cloud, it's already a big shift for customers. From a risk management perspective, you have to, customer, being the you here, they have to make sure the data is safe and they have enough guardrails. You don't want them to take the risk of not just them, the vendor's risk, right? That's one of the key things we do, is that we want to make sure the data is always with the customer, and this is something we fundamentally believe in. So what do we offer? This is our, I'll just quickly build it here. In the public cloud, I'll just tell you this is similar, this is whatever I'm talking about here applies to all the other public clouds too. In AWS, if you look at it, it's a true SaaS. I'll do a quick demo of it right after this. It is go to the marketplace, turn it on, use it. A big thing I tell people is that if your vendor comes and tells you, oh, I have to do sizing, as soon as you heard the word sizing in a public cloud, it is not a SaaS, as you guys know. A true SaaS is supposed to be like a meter, right? Turn it on, use as much as you want. If you don't like, turn it off. That's one of the fundamental things. There should be no size limit, and that's what we can actually do. Because I'll give you a real example. One of our first customers, one of the early customers, I should say, they started our SaaS solution. They said, oh yeah, how much do you have? We have in 7 different regions, and I have a little more than 7,000 VMs. The guy, our sales guy said, oh my God, can you support it? I said, like, no big deal. We can do it because you're truly elastic, and that's the confidence we have in our architecture.
While I tend to agree most companies would like this, they find it a bit too complex, so they would like a predictable portion and a variable portion, not just truly elastic.
Oh, so there are 2 parts to it, I think, what you're asking. So one is there's a cost element to it, and then the infrastructure capability element, right? Infrastructure capability-wise, it actually has it. To the point of thresholds, if you want to specify the thresholds, what are you saying? Hey, I want a predictable, and then this one? Absolutely, that is something we have in the cost aspect. So that is a great point, what you mentioned. So that's absolutely there. Then the couple of other things around cost utilization. I mean, you want to make sure. A big thing in cloud is people think cloud is easy, as all of you guys know. It's easy to use. The question is, unless you use it efficiently, it becomes very expensive very quickly, right? If you don't manage it properly, the price goes out of control. That is something we use the smart design. We understand the cloud really well and make sure the lowest cost resources are utilized. That is something we do.
Does your solution feed back metrics on how cost effective it is during operation? It seems to me if you're claiming that you're cost effective, you shouldn't rely on the customer measuring it. You should be telling him, this is where the needle is and it's not going up.
Totally. See, actually, it's an interesting thing what you say. One of the things we built in the product itself is that, for example, a simple thing, right? In public clouds, if you sit in one region and back up some other region, you're actually moving if you move the data, you're paying egress costs between regions, right? It sounds simple. It's within the same public cloud, but different regions you pay egress. That's the thing
which cloud provider you use too, I think.
Sorry?
I think it depends a bit on which cloud provider you choose.
Pretty much, if you think about it, most of them, within zones, they don't charge you, but within regions, they charge you. Pretty much everybody does it, right? So to your point. And the thing which we end up doing for customers is that we completely automate based on, we understand the cloud economics and where it is, and we do that. A thing we should do, to what your point, is make the savings visible to the customer so they can actually show to their management how they've done it. Absolutely.
I don't trust you to tell me how much you're saying.
Totally. So the thing is the part about backup efficiency, again, as I said, public cloud, a lot of people think, oh, public cloud is cheap, right? Storage is cheap, which is true. public cloud guys have done a phenomenal job of the object storage, S3, GCP storage, Azure blobs. All of them are very cost efficient. But if you have small number of copies, it's great. But when you have a large number of copies, the cost does go up for customers. That's where we have, people said, oh, so you put a dedupe appliance there. We said the classic dedupe doesn't work in a public cloud. The reason, classic dedupe requires a compute engine, right? Something has to be running 24/7, a dedupe engine has to be running. That becomes expensive in the public cloud. The reason is storage is cheap, compute and memory are not in a public cloud. That's where we have actually built what we call the cloud dedupe, which automatically comes up with just a single instance of a block. Any block is only uniquely copied only once. That is something we do and make it extremely efficient. Again, there is no, people say, oh, so yes, if you're doing incremental fulls, you got, no. If you start doing that, it becomes a pain because then you have to do synthetic fulls and things like that. We don't want any of the pain for customers.
So egress costs money, and if you give people a solution, they change the way in which they use the data. Mm-hmm. So you may now find that people are routinely copying data out of the backups because it's cheap to take the stuff home with them or something like that. And you can find that because people's access patterns change, the costs change very markedly. And pulling data off a backup
absolutely
is quite expensive.
Totally. So to your point about there is a egress cost it's a complex thing depending on the customer usage, so on. So absolutely. So what we try to optimize, which we under our control, is around the backup as well as the recovery aspect of it. That is something we automatically choose the right place so that the least cost for the customer. So granular recovery, I will actually do a demonstration for you on this particular one. A big thing around what Simon said earlier, we want to make sure there's no impact on the production application. This is something we truly mean it. This goes back to how tightly we are integrated into the platform. For every platform, be it Google, Azure, AWS, Nutanix, VMware, every one of them we try to integrate with a native snapshot capability in the platform, native replication capability, all that. So that's built in. And also when we do the backup, because we don't use agents, and because we're not backing up at the source, all of the impact is completely offloaded from the production. So this is one of the reasons customers in our world back up every hour. They can back up without any backup window. That is something they can do.
Is there a correlation if, for example, I choose some new EC2 instance, for example, on Graviton, 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Do I get a better performance? It's correlating to that?
Absolutely. So one of the things with regards to do we support the different instances to which, for example, AWS supports? We support pretty much every instance which AWS actually offers today because of the way we integrate with them, and we have actually validated that. So that is something absolutely we can do that. And there are two aspects to it. The production itself is touched only during the time when you want application consistency. We do application in consistent mode, take a snapshot, let the production go. So the amount of time we touch the production is extremely small. The backup is completely done off the production server, so there's no impact to the system. Okay. The last part which is there in the slide, which is around ransomware, as there are a bunch of things we do for ransomware. I know I don't do justice by just this one line item there. The thing we do is that, number one, we make sure every data copy is done. We actually put it in an independent project, not on the production service. So even if you completely delete the production, the backup is saved. That's number one. Number two, we make sure that we actually support the AWS's S3, AWS S3 object locks. So that's something we can actually do that. And the thing is that we also are completely compliant with AWS's identity access management. So any end user cannot accidentally delete stuff. This goes back to, and it's a complete separate service account, so the production guy cannot do anything bad. So there are a variety of checks we have done, and I can go on so many other checks we have.
Do you have a relationship with an insurance company that offers people lower premiums if they use your solution?
Actually, it's an interesting point you mentioned. One of the things which our customers ask us to go through is that, as Simon talked about the R score, customers actually present the results of the R score to customers, that's to their insurance providers, that's number one. Second thing we do is that, I don't talk about it here, the thing is which I should probably talk about in the follow-on one is that we, in addition to being able to recover locally, the thing about HYCU is that we can actually recover the entire estate, not just on AWS, on a different cloud, as well as on an on-prem infrastructure for AWS. And for on-prem infrastructure, we can recover it on any public cloud you have, AWS, Google, Azure, that's there. That's one of the reasons for the insurance company, the recoverability is there, the ransomware protection is there, so those are things which actually gives them definitely lower premium. This has come up, especially, I'll tell you, in the public sector space, a lot more companies are doing it, a lot more organizations doing it. Okay, I'll just quickly go through the operational efficiency aspect of it there. The quick thing is that I mentioned earlier, we actually are completely self-service ready. The big thing we heard from customers in public cloud is that in a public cloud, in an on-prem world, they used to control completely how the recoveries happen. There's a team which actually does it. In public cloud, they don't have too many people managing the backup. They want people to be able to recover themselves. So we provide self-service recovery across the board. Simplicity, because it sounds, as Simon said, simplicity is one of those very hard to measure items. But the big thing here is that there are times people who have been completely untrained on backup should be able to go and recover. That's our measure. That's something they've been able to do. That is there. So I can go on to, I mentioned about policy management. This is an interesting thing. I always get very interesting because whenever I hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, we are policy-based. Everything is policy-based in the world, right? So, but if you double click on it and look at it saying, what do they really do? Oh, they have a policy for jobs, policy for resource management, policy for backups, policy for, God, then it's like not one policy. You're not having a holistic view of what's happening in the environment. Whereas we believe there should be only one policy you just set once, one time you set, and one policy you manage for your infrastructure. I'll talk a little more about that. Oh, the last thing I mentioned, which is this is an important aspect which is easy to skim over. Because we are a service and because the way we have set it up is a fully monitored service behind the scene, we just not only monitor our service, we monitor also the customer's backup success rate, what's happening, failures, all that stuff. If there's a problem, we automatically notify the customer, create a ticket and notify the customer. So that's something we do. This is my last thing before I jump onto this one. Dev test, a big thing in the world of public cloud. People not only want to use it as a backup and recovery tool, they want to be able to DR. I'll give you a real example. One of our customers actually does a backup of all of their they have a large farm. What they do is they have lots of developers and testers and so on. They use it all through the week. Towards the weekend, just to save money, all the machines, they shut down a majority of their machines over the weekend. On Monday morning, they spin them back up. One thing they realized was, during COVID, when they brought the machines back up, they realized that sometimes the regions run out of capacity. Sounds strange. As you know, cloud also there's limits on cloud too. There are times they run out of capacity. So what the customer needed to do was, in case the region runs out of capacity in one region, they should be able to spin up on a different region. They use HYCU, so they can actually spin up every day, every weekend before they shut down. They make sure that there is a safe copy. In case they're not able to bring up on same region, they bring up on a different region. That is something they can do with HYCU. Cross-regional DR we talked about. So this is a quick migration capability to AWS there. So this is from an architecture perspective for the customer itself. For every one of the clouds, as well as our on-prem infrastructure, it's a very simple service. You can actually run independently, and you can actually do migration and DR between all of them. That's something we actually have. I hope I'm making sense. Any questions, comments? While I actually go through a quick demo for you guys. So, okay, I'll just start with a quick rundown, and then I'll probably go through one of our AWS infrastructure too. I got to log into all the infrastructure. The quick thing is that, a big thing is that, as Simon said, we actually support multiple clouds for customers. When they have multiple clouds, one of the things they want to give a quick holistic view of how things are. So here's a simple view of our consolidated dashboard for customers. You go to a single pane of glass, be able to get a quick view, because every day in the morning when backup administrators come or IT people come, they want to get a holistic view. That gives them a quick view. At any point in time, when you see something is unprotected, things like that, you should be able to go straight to that particular console and be able to do that. In the interest of time, I'm going to go straight into our AWS thing right now, and I will actually do a quick rundown. I didn't log into the thing, so it's like I will actually show you the thing. Like, okay, there's something there in the marketplace. Okay, that's good. It does show up. So this is in the AWS marketplace. Yeah, Enrique, you was actually asking about this. The true SaaS there. You can go to AWS Market, right there in the market, you can subscribe to it, and at any point in time use it. As soon as what happens is that every time a customer subscribes to it, they will get a dedicated instance. A big thing we try to focus on is make sure there is no possibility of data leakage. Every customer has an independent instance, so there is no touching of any possibility of anybody touching each other's data. That's something there. And the good thing is that, but if you're a service provider and are managing large number of customers, you can have a single console to manage all of them. That is something you can still do. So once you do it, the first thing you will get is a simple login. I logged in with my credential, but I mean, if you're a customer and are integrated into AWS, you will use your AWS credentials to log in. Once you do that, you get a quick holistic view of the infrastructure. That's the first thing. The thing here is that, I'll just go to my instances. This is one of our demo infrastructure. What you're seeing is, can you guys see a little bit there? It's a little blurry there. Sorry, the projector is pretty, the latest technology there. So the thing is that it gives you a quick view on all the virtual machines and applications you actually own in this particular case. The key thing is that a backup itself, we try to tell people the backup is extremely simple. People say, really, is it true? What is it backup there? For example, you can choose all of them, or you can choose any one of the, okay. You can actually choose any one of the applications, virtual machines you want. And backup in our world is what we call one click, and we essentially mean, I should say, one selection. You can just choose the policy you really want to say, and then assign. And as soon as you assign, your backup is done. When I talked about policy management, if we truly wanted to make it simple, it is one click and it's done. People say then, oh yeah, but it sounds, where are the jobs, the retention in the typical backup world, you manage your jobs and retention, things like that. We said that was great in the past, but you should not have to manage your jobs because that's the job of the backup software. Why have this additional management layer? Tell us what you want, we will take care. That's why it's truly automated. That's the way we think of it. I'll just talk about recovery next, and then I'll probably, let's say this is the machine, and one of your people, let's say I'll just choose one of the machines. Sorry, I can't even see my own stuff. Okay, let's say even one of your machines there, I'll just use it here. There are a couple of backups. One of your guys comes and says, oh my God, something went wrong, can you recover for me? The choice you have are you can recover the entire instance. Sorry, you guys, you can't read it. You can recover the entire instance, or you can recover the single file or folder. Let's say if you want to recover the entire instance, you can recover it to, you can't even see anything. It's like really bad there. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry, I don't want to spend my time here. I'll just quickly go through. You can recover the entire instance. You can actually move on to a brand new instance. You can actually do that particular one. You can clone the instance. A big thing in cloud, it's easy to do. As you guys know, it's to be able to clone it. You can, because most people, before they restore the same place, they want to clone it and test it out. You can absolutely do that. Or there are times what happens, the customer doesn't want to recover the entire virtual machine. They want to be able to recover just specific volumes of EBS. They want to recover the data. You can actually absolutely do that.
If you recover to a point in time,
yeah,
there's a danger that you'll have duplicate transactions, that it would have done some work before it crashed, then you've restored to before that the work was done. And you need to know what work was in progress after the point you've restored to.
Okay, so there are a couple of things to your point which you said. Number one is that whenever we back up, we actually make sure it is application consistent. That is something for every virtual machine we do, we automatically do that. Be it Windows, Linux, we automatically do that. That's one part we do that, right? So it's by default application consistent, that's there. The second thing is that before you recover the data, we also have a copy of your original still there in some sense. So if you want to be able to recover the old copy and then be able to take some transactions, if you have a log or something from the other one you want to apply here, you can absolutely do that. So you can do both. All right? So you can actually do infrastructure here. So this is, all you have to do is that you select it. The good thing in HYCU is that, I really feel bad you guys can't see this properly. The thing here is that you can choose which volume we can be able to recover. You can also decide which regions you can actually do that, especially if you want to do DR. That becomes a question here. So that's something there. In the interest of this one, I'm not going to choose here. I'll probably do a quick thing I'll show you on the restore files. Most people don't recover the entire virtual machine. They want to be able to recover individual files, folders. That's what they want to be able to do. So, and they can recover to the same place or to a different place. Let me actually choose a thing here. And I can choose individual which disks I want to be able to do it. While this is actually coming through, I just want to actually show you while actually is building the catalog to show you that. I'll quickly show you this is something which, let's say if you are an on-prem infrastructure, I don't know whether I have AWS here, but I'll show you the thing here. With an on-prem infrastructure, you're sitting on an on-prem infrastructure, and you want to be able to see all your virtual machines. I could do the same thing for application, by the way. So you have your virtual machines, and let's say you have one of your machines. So like let's actually choose let's choose a physical machine, and or like let's say, and you want to be able to spin up to the cloud. Close there. Let's say you want to spin up to the cloud. It's as simple as this. As Simon said, it's 4-click. In this particular case, I just have a couple of clouds connected here. I could actually add any cloud. Let's say if you have I'll just use Azure for now in this particular case. Use the same thing here. You can choose not just when you recover, you should be able to recover which region you want to be able to recover. You can choose which region you want to be able to recover. With subscription, it automatically talks to the right cloud infrastructure at that particular point in time, and you are able to do that. That's something we allow you to do. The other big thing is that we talked about disaster recovery. I'm just showing you a single VM. You can just do this for entire application sets, could be bulk recovery. We have a variety of them. And the other thing which you guys had asked earlier too is that how do we constantly validate? We have what we call backup validation. The way we do our backup validation is not just saying, oh, I'll spin up a machine somewhere and say, ping it and it's good. That's ping test is a good test, but we believe customers should be able to do a lot more application-specific tests. So when we do the thing recover, we recover the machine, an application, and you can do application-specific tests. We can do that to make sure it's good. That's something we do. All right. So, and the other thing we end up doing here is that I didn't select the. Sorry, 1 second. I got to do the Europe. Where is Europe? Okay. Sorry, okay, there is Western Europe. Okay, so essentially what you can do is go through the individual one of them. You can do the availability zones, and you can specify which resource group you actually have in each one of them. So that's the level of capability you actually have. In the interest of time, because I know they're giving me a signal there, let me actually show you a quick thing about how to actually recover individual files, folders. Sorry, it's been a little hard for you to hopefully see there. But it's a simple thing is that it's as simple as a single file recovery. And customers should be able to choose what they want to recover and then say next and can recover to the same machine or to a different machine. And same location, alternative location, and so on. So it's a relatively very straightforward process. If you guys are interested, I can probably do a follow-on demo. So please go ahead. You had a question there.
Can you search one file among all your backups?
So with regards to, I think what you're asking for, what we have actually observed is that because if you want to maintain a large catalog, then you have to put it in if you want a single catalog which actually has all the files, there are customers who want to do that. For that, we have separate search indexing. But for most normal customers, to keep the costs low and to use less compute resources and not have to worry about the scaling, we do at the individual VM level, individual application level, and that's how we do that.